Hey everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at the Banner Saga. The Banner Saga is a game that probably has like one of the largest backstories or, origin stories of any game that's come out, at least over the early part of this year or the late part of last year, that I was completely unaware of until I actually played the game. Usually, I keep my finger on the pulse of the indie game scene as much as I can, but with so much coming out, Kickstarter campaigns, Greenlight campaigns, Steam releases, it's difficult and sometimes some slip through the cracks. So let's talk about the Banner Saga. Originally, this was a Kickstarted game, and it was kickstarted with the goal of $100,000 back in like March and April, the late winter, early spring of 2013. Let's put it that way. And it ended up making 700 times, or 700, sorry, not 700 times, 700% of what it asked for. So they raised over $500,000, around $723,000, I think. And now the Banner Saga is coming out on Steam. It is a grid-based strategy RPG in the same vein as something like a Fire Emblem, or maybe you might even think of it as kind of like a fantasy version of XCOM or something like that. Final Fantasy Tactics is another one that it's probably going to be compared to. But the difference between this and something like XCOM, for example, less so Fire Emblem, or Final Fantasy Tactics, is that this is very story-driven. It is a beautiful-looking game. Let's get into the gameplay. We've already been here for like a minute and a half. This is now available on Steam. You're going to pay for it. It's $20 for its opening week sale, $25 after that. But there's a lot to like here in the hour and a half I've played so far. So I'm going to load into our game. And I'm going to load into an earlier chapter. So why don't we start with not Chapter 2, but Chapter 1, Only the Sun Has Stopped. There's also elements of Oregon Trail and like kind of player management that are happening in here. So we're kind of at the tutorial stage of the game right now. We're going to fight a few tutorial battles. It's a good thing because I can actually, talk about the mechanics of the game that I'm actually familiar with. But it does kind of blossom with a little bit more strategic depth, even as much as I've played so far. But this is very narrative-driven. It's very story-driven. The story hasn't necessarily super grabbed me so far, but I appreciate that it's very robust. Although sometimes I'm like, get on with it, get on with the fights. The same way I felt a little bit about War of the Human Tanks, but that video will be coming later. So, we're starting. There's dialogue trees as well that we'll have. But anyway, you're approached by a familiar man who walks in step with you as you're leaving the Great Hall. He cuts to the chase. We're going to have some dialogue here. So this is Eirik. I'm going to do the dialogue, by the way, so if you're the kind of person that's annoyed by that, I apologize. Eirik, steward of Strand, I manage the governor's business. Euban, isn't it? And at different times during the game, we're going to take control over different players, and we'll have agency over not players, but different heroes. So right now, we're Euban, and Euban is a Varl, and a Varl is like a half-man, half, some kind of demigod type creature that is going to be the main fighting force, like the heart of our fighting force in this war that we're fighting against some kind of like cyberpunky enemies. One thing I would just want to talk about are steampunky enemies. You'll see. One thing I want to talk about is that obviously the art in this game looks fantastic. Hand-drawn, and it kind of reminds me of either like classic Disney movies, like I'm getting a real Beauty and the Beast vibe from Euban here, or Ubin, but also kind of like Don Bluethy, Dragon's Lair, Secret of Nim, stuff like that. And this game is heavily inspired by Norse mythology and history as well. So anyway, we have a little bit of a dialogue tree. So Euban, is it? It is. The governor tells me you'll be giving us a hand. What did you have in mind? Scalfings that you didn't hack up in the Great Hall scattered after you took out their chieftain. This is like a rival kind of faction. So we're going to basically be putting down a civil unrest, a spat of civil unrest that is happening in this area that we're in right now. There's going to be a lot of gameplay to talk about here. This could be a long video. Stick around. You're going to like it, I think, once we get involved here. The governor just wants to make sure they stay down. Was hoping you'd join me at the marketplace by the docks. If there's anyone left to worry about, I know who can tell us. So then, this is one of the interfaces we'll have to deal with, is when you're in a town, you have a few options. You can go to the market, we can go to the different buildings. There's like a mead hall in here and a place to rest. But for now, the game's guiding our experience. Eventually, we'll have a little bit more independence and autonomy over this. So Eirik says, let me handle this. You meander through rows of open-faced houses and eroded stalls. Colored canvases flap on a briny current. One man in particular blanches as you approach. Had, I'm not in the mood today. For what? Talking to an idiot. Classic Eirik. Kind of a dick, to be honest with you. The Scavling's chieftain bled out an hour ago. Had, so when you tell me that wet rat anus the rest of them crawled back into, nobody's going to try to kill you this time. They don't talk to me. And now we have a choice. Eirik needs some help here. I'm just trying to push the dialogue along so we can actually get into some of the combat as soon as possible. But the story element is a big part of the game. Probably, 50 to 60% of the game so far. At least, again, fairly limited experience with a game that seems this robust. But in any case, I had a change of heart. I hope you do give us a hard time. Had sweats visibly, fumbling with some dirty trinkets on his table. Wait, just buy one of these. If everybody thinks I'm getting worked over every week, how am I supposed to know much? I guess this guy's like an informant, but if he's too transparent with his informancy, How are people going to tell him things in confidence? Just a little food money, yeah? Sure, we'll pay him a little bit of silver. You toss a sliver of silver on the table. Both men look at you with surprise. Hob gestures meekly to a variety of junk from his stall. Take whatever you like. Only thing I'd like is the name of a place. Nobleman, up by the east wall, but that was months ago, last I know. Nobleman is actually a place here, so I'm going to skip through a little bit of the dialogue here. They've introduced Gunulf, or Gunulf. He is going to be another member of our fighting force, but I'm going to click through the dialogue. Mostly the point that I want to get across here, it's dialogue heavy, it's story heavy. Some people are going to be into that, some people aren't. Story hasn't grabbed me that much so far, and it's got kind of that Tolkien-esque problem for me, where I'm like, okay, so we've got Ubin, Eirik, Gunulf. Like, in my head, that might as well be like Shawalala, Shingadingadong. Like, in my head, the names just kind of all get jumbled together, and the same with places. Like, we're going to Scroder. No, we're going to Frostvale. And I'm like, those might as well be like, I almost wish they just called them like A, B, C, D, E, F, G for me, because I can't keep them straight in my head. But luckily, the game's very good about A, repeating those names so you can match a name to a face, and I'll go to the meat house here, and B, telling you exactly where to go so that you don't get lost, which is a big deal with me due to my, almond-sized brain. So we're just going to walk in through the front door of the meat hall here. Occasionally, we'll have opportunities to exercise our own independence over these decisions, and that can have differential effects on things. But anyway, for now, it's fairly linear. Let's just get into a fight. So we're going to go inside of the meat hall here. Valgard boots the front door open so hard it won't close again without repair as you enter the hall. Eirik is already at the head of the table, his axe drawn. Wide-eyed, drunken scofflings scramble to find their weapons, turning tables and mead steins in the process. All right, so there's a pretty good representation of what's going on in the story of the game. Without exposition anyway. The game actually does a very good job of just kind of dropping you in media res without constantly going through exposition, at least in my opinion. But, that kind of criticism is always, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has one. So let's talk about the actual gameplay of the Banner Saga so far. This is, again, grid-based, turn-based strategy. Down at the bottom here, we have our turn order, and this is based on the initiative of our units. And we can set that initiative at kind of like a battle preparation screen, but we're too early in the game to deal with that. So before we get started, we can move some people around if we want to, and I think that's not a bad idea. Probably a good idea to have our shield bearers up at the front here, and maybe our more offensive units slightly further behind them. So every unit has a couple of different stats that I'm just going to talk about just before we get started. If I just mouse over or click on a unit, you can see that on their banner, there's two different stats. There's a blue banner and a red banner. The blue banner represents armor. The red armor represents health. The higher your, strength. The higher your strength, the more damage you do, and also that's your HP. If that falls down to 0, you fall in battle and become injured. This is not like a Fire Emblem in that there's permadeath. If people fall in battle, typically they just end up being injured and then you rest them and they're like worse for future battles until they're healed. So that's kind of disappointing, actually. I would have preferred if there were maybe some more major consequences, but maybe that's something that comes in later, although I kind of doubt it the way the narrative seems to be set up. Additionally, there is like a number 5 that you can see up there. That is his willpower. Willpower allows us to do things, well, we might as well get started if I'm going to show it off. Willpower allows us to do things that might not otherwise be possible. Like, for example, if you look at the grid here, the blue spaces are the spaces I can move to without using willpower, and the yellow spaces are the spaces I can move to with using willpower. So willpower is a renewable resource. We can get more of it when we level up, but we also use it for things like using our special abilities. So you want to be pretty prudent or pretty conservative with your use of it. Now, very important, if you look down on the very bottom left, you can see the turn order. Turn orders alternate, even if you're outnumbered. So what this means is that they go, I go, they go, I go. Why is this important? They have like 10 enemy troops. I have 4. If they could go like multiple times before I could go, that would create a real issue because they could just hack the shit out of me. But instead, for 99% of the battle, we'll alternate, which is pretty important. So I'm just going to move up, because this guy's going to move before most of the enemies, I'm just going to move him up to here, and then he'll be good to go, and we'll just end his turn. We could do Stonewall as well, which is an ability, blocks 3 damage per hit for 1 round. Not worth it, I would say. Maybe I've kind of screwed myself out of being... Oh, never mind. Here we go. End turn. All right. So they go, I go. They go, I go. And you're going to see how this works out as we move along here. So this is Eirik. Eirik is someone that I want to keep a little bit protected behind a shield wall. He actually has an ability. He's almost like a paladin class in that he buffs the other units. He can actually give willpower to other people. So we're not going to do that. Maybe we are going to do that. Why don't we give 2 extra willpower to our attacker here so that maybe he can help do more damage in the future. Okay, so they're going to make a move. And this move is just going to move him up there. And finally, we will actually have a chance to do some damage here. So notice, by the way, that humans take up 1 grid space, and the Varl actually take up 4. That's because they're much larger. This is our shield banger, and we're going to move him out over here. And then we'll talk a little bit about attacking. So the way that attacking works, remember that you have 2 stats, your armor and your strength. Attacking allows you to attack either armor or strength. And with enemies that are relatively weak-willed, it's probably best to just bang out their strength, right? If they're not so heavily armored. Like, what's the difference? With 3 damage, we could kill him in 2 turns. If we start taking out his armor, that might allow us to do 4 damage next turn, or 5 or 6 damage next turn, but it's still going to take 2 turns. So at this point, we might as well just bang him out here. And we could add 1 more damage to this attack by adding 1 willpower point into it if we wanted to, but I don't think that's necessary because we're already doing 50% of his health. So we'll just do that and hurt him a little bit. There are abilities, and I'll talk about those abilities a little bit later. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to get myself into a position where I can do damage with our really heavy damage dealer here, so we'll just end our turn with him and see how the enemy responds. They're actually going to do 1 damage to him, and that's annoying, but not the end of the world. So let's start taking these fools out. I think this guy should go over here, and he can do 4 damage. You could also use Stonewall, which is an ability. But, additionally, sometimes you have the opportunity to augment your damage with willpower, which is what we're going to do right now. And we can use 2 willpower. We're already at 8 of 6, which is really good. But we can use 2 willpower and basically kill him in 1 hit. So why don't we do that? Willpower is extremely useful, and it's extremely important to kind of use it as a good currency or like use it prudently. But we're going to use it nonetheless. By the way, the grid spaces, if it's yellow, that means it costs 1 willpower per space. So to move here would cost 1, to move here would cost 2. That would be real nasty. So I think we're just going to move ourselves fairly deep into enemy territory here. And we could use Rally, but I'm not going to use Rally. I am instead just going to go to town. By the way, the reason we do 2 damage to this guy, but only 1 damage to this guy, is based on his armor stat. So when you fight really heavily armored foes, it actually is extremely prudent to take their armor down as quickly as possible. And this, you know, the fact that you don't just have like 1 resource for health bar, the fact that you have like HP as well as armor, adds another level of strategic depth, which I'm still wrapping my head around. So we're just going to, with guys that only have 6 armor, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to attack. Maybe I'll add 1 willpower into this, just so I can guarantee that he'll be killed on the next turn. And we'll continue onwards here. Should go without saying at this point, he attacked my armor there, by the way. Should go without saying at this point that the visual style, still fantastic, even in the battles here. It's still got that like nice hand-drawn, old-school Disney or Don Bluth type style going to it. We can do something very special here. So let's take our Gunolf, who is our war banger or something like that. I've forgotten what class his name, or what name his class is. We can move him over here and we can use this ability called Tempest. And the way that Tempest works is that it's an area of effect attack that causes him to swing his sword in a circle. So you can see it does 1 normal strength damage to 2 adjacent enemies, starting from the target and going clockwise. So why don't we start here, and we'll do this attack, and you can see how this works. So we did 8 damage to one and 9 damage to the other, and he actually leveled up. So there is like an experience type system going on here as well, in case you were not expecting that. So I think we'll just continue kind of cutting our enemies up here. So far, this is going really well. We can do 4 damage to this guy, or we can add 2 more willpower on top and kill him instantly. But I'm going to save my willpower, because willpower, again, becomes extremely important. And, you know, both strength and willpower are skills that are not skills, but attributes that are not necessarily easy to get more of. So I think it's in our best interest to use them as prudently as possible. So no reason to overkill this guy. We'll just keep cutting him up, and we got an achievement for killing someone with the Warden class there. I guess that's the first time we've done that. And we'll move our shield banger over here. That didn't cost 1 willpower. Maybe it did, actually. Kind of unfortunate, but oh well. We can do 3 damage to this guy and just kill him instantly. So again, it's worth noting this is very much like a tutorial battle. So this is easier than we can kill this guy in 1 hit because this guy's got great stats. Beautiful. This is easier than the battles that'll come a little bit later. I'm playing on normal difficulty. There's no shame in this game in going down to easy, I think. I have... this is an interesting choice. I have had a devil of a time on some of the fights that come a little bit later. So, again, this is more easy or easier than a lot of the battles that will come after it, and you will see that for a fact. So what's this guy's health at, or strength at? He's at 6 out of 8. We could kill these guys with our willpower, but I think it's actually better to just fall back because this guy's a little weaker. And then we can use Rally, and why don't we give some more willpower to this guy, because he's going to use Tempest as much as possible. So he only gets 1 willpower from that because his maximum is 5, I guess. I'm not sure why some of them can get kind of overcharged for willpower. Like, this guy's got 6 out of 5 right now. Beats me! Let's do our... oh, that's not what I meant to do. Let's do an attack here, and we may want to attack armor in this case, because we're really survivable. It's still going to take us 3 turns probably, but at least I can demonstrate what happens when you attack armor. His armor stat goes down. Surprise, surprise. They're going to attack me. Sometimes, yeah, I do damage back when they do that. Can't really get in range of attack here, so that's poor positioning on my part, but that's okay. You can see how a lot of the skills... or a lot of the gameplay or, you know, tactics that you learn in something like an XCOM come in handy when you're playing something like this. The learning curve, at least for the basics, is not very high. I was able to get into this right away because I played a whole bunch of XCOM Enemy Unknown. That being said, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to succeed really well right off the bat. Now, we have 6 of 8 health. I almost think it's probably best for us to actually get in there and do some damage. Let's see... I don't really want to waste a willpower. Can I give willpower to myself? No, okay. Well, if you rest for a turn and do nothing, you actually just gain 1 willpower as well. So let's keep him out of harm's way here and let our big heavy dudes do some of the chopping. So now you saw last time we did 5 damage. Or sorry, last time we did 3 damage. Or 2 damage. It was 2 or 3, I can't remember. Now we'll do 5. So with 1 willpower, we actually can just kill him. So that was a 2-turn kill instead of a 3-turn kill. Now, that was a good situation to abuse the armor of the enemy, I think. Maybe I've made some kind of mathematical mistake, but now we're in pillage mode. Pillage mode is the 1% of the time. Remember I said 99% of the time you alternate. In pillage mode, which happens when there's only 1 enemy remaining, it's just based on turn order. So as you can see, we have 4 units that are going to go before their last remaining unit. And we can do 9 damage in 1 hit, so it didn't really matter, but... basically, this is like, once you've routed the enemy, then you just go to town on them. I probably should have tried to kill him with someone else so I can get extra experience for a different unit. But anyway, I digress. There's a victory. So you've seen a little bit of the story mode. That happened. There's a lot of that. You've seen a little bit of the strategy. I like both of them. I like the strategy more. I think this is a very, very good grid-based strategy game in the limited amount of experience I have so far. There's another element to the game, the Oregon Trail style stuff. Hopefully we'll see that pretty shortly. We may have one more battle first. And we'll probably find out a little bit more about the story as well, because this does have kind of like a Rashomon, like you're cutting through time and seeing different people at different points in their lives and seeing how the realm gets brought together in this like united crusade against what are called dredges, which are the big bads. But anyway, you get renown when you finish battles depending on your performance. The renown is something that you use as a currency and as experience points, if that makes sense. You use renown to buy items when you go to the market, but you also use renown to promote your units. So, you know, you spend 5 renown to level up, basically, if you've earned that level up. So Eirik says, there they are, gods be damned, I've got to go wash off this blood. Eirik is looking out the hall's windows onto the bay. A fleet of longships approaches with sails of bold reds and blues. One banner I know well, Vonir. Next for Varl Kingship, last we spoke. The other flag looks important. Yes, important guests, see what I deal with all day long. Now, I'm not necessarily... One side, sure, what is it? I'm not necessarily going to skip through the dialogue because it's going to avoid spoiling the story. This is still very, very early on, so I don't expect that, you know, anything that you're going to see right now is necessarily going to take away from your experience. What I will say is that I'm going to skip through a lot of the dialogue because it's a little exhaustive, which is an okay thing, on paper at least, but for the purposes of this video, it'll be 55 minutes long if I start, you know, reading every single piece of dialogue. And I know I'm taking 2 minutes to explain when I'm not reading the dialogue, but trust me, it would take 20 minutes if I read all the dialogue that's on the screen. So I'm going to skip by a lot of it. Hopefully you got a feel for the kind of tone of the story and the way that it comes across here. You know, play it for yourself if you want to actually experience more of the story. So we're going down to the docks and we're going to meet some people. And I'm not going to worry too much about our choices, but basically we're being introduced to a few more characters here. And you can see the dialogue. There's a lot of it, and that's fine. It's weird because this is going to go up before my Let's Look at of War of the Human Tanks, but I kind of feel the same way. In War of the Human Tanks, strategy stuff I thought was really good. Story stuff, in War of the Human Tanks, I was like, not feeling it at all. In the Banner Saga, it tickles my fancy a little bit more. You know, like a lot of nerds, I have a soft spot for Norse mythology, history, and culture, and I've had the fantasy bug run through me before, but still, I think I much prefer the strategy aspects to the narrative aspect, but it's cool that it's narrative driven. Let's put it that way. All right. So, we can either sleep in the Great Hall or we can go talk to these people. I don't think, you know, for character development, it probably matters, but instead I'm just going to go, like, rest in the Great Hall. And we got some supplies here. I'll explain what happens with those supplies, but anyway, we're ready. Is this what we want to do? I think so. Okay, so we're leaving now. This is the Oregon Trail style stuff. So we leave in kind of this caravan. There may be some dialogue, by the way, with our person talking, but I'm probably going to talk over him. The way that this works, very important. This interface right here. Morale, we have great morale. Morale improves when you rest, and the longer you kind of go, this is our number of days that's kind of ticking up like a clock style here. The further you go without resting, the lower your morale goes, and this affects the performance of your units in battle. We also have days of supplies, 66. Every day that goes by, well, you would see it in like another 2 seconds if this event didn't pop up. But every day that goes by, you lose 1 day of supplies. So you've got to manage your supplies. Sometimes you want to rest because you have injured units or your morale is terrible, but you only have a few days of supplies and you got to get to the next town. When you get to a town, you can buy items, weapons, and supplies, which is extremely important. You trade in your renown for extra survival days, basically. So that's the Oregon Trail style stuff. And as you go along here, you will have events. This is a scripted event. I'm not sure if all events are scripted, but this is a scripted event. The caravan stops for the day. A gift, says Moger, cracking open mead casks. From our gracious friend, the governor of Strand. Hours pass with raucous laughter as the mead is passed through the camp. Let's drink a little. You go easy. You've got nothing against a good drink, but if anyone's going to keep an eye on things, it may well be you. The revelers eventually fall asleep without incident. Okay, so that's good. If we had chosen to drink a lot, maybe we would have gotten into a fight. Maybe someone would have punched someone else in the face. Maybe we would have bonded and we would get better morale or something like that. But I wanted to play it safe there because we're already in a pretty good position. All right, you rise groggily. The campsite a casualty of merriment. Moger is already kicking warriors awake when you spot Ludin stalking your direction. He sidesteps sleeping bodies. Better wake up, you nudge Vonir. You're needed. So we are going to have some more combat here, which is great. I'm going to skip by a lot of this. And this is good because it's going to introduce the other enemies that we're going to fight for kind of the remainder of the game. This is just the map screen here. It's not super important, I think, but as you can see, there is like a lot of map to cover here. And we're going to Strand, so that's where we're going to go next. And you can actually click on wherever you want to click on. So this is the area of Rundwall. In the First Great War, Men and Varl, who are the horned demon, half-man, half-demigod type creatures, fought viciously for Rundwall's abundant farmlands and coasts overflowing with fish. Only with the help of the Menders would Rundwall eventually become the home of Arborong, the capital of men, and Monahar, where the Menders could gather in council. See, again, all this stuff might as well be like, you know, dust in the wind, man. It hits me and then it's gone in like 2 seconds because there's a lot of information and a lot of words that I'm not necessarily familiar with. On the one hand, I appreciate that the game kind of drops you in again in media res, so you're like, you're not stuck necessarily dealing with a ton of exposition, like first this happened, then this happened, then this happened. That's cool because you can get into things very, very quickly. On the other hand, it's like, I don't really know what's going on. I'm okay with not knowing what's going on, but it makes a lot of this information like kind of not that useful to me, at least immediately. Maybe that changes. Dangler's Bay is a great name. It's like some Dogger's Bank, Crusader Kings 2 style stuff. But anyway, we're going to exit out of this. Again, maybe the story blossoms a little bit more in a way that would grab me as you get further along. As is right now, beautifully told artistically. Dialogue, not necessarily my cup of tea, but I digress. So we're skipping through a lot of this stuff, and very, very shortly we should have some more combat against jerks. So this is going to tell us about camp, and I'm glad that this is going to be a long let's look at, but that's okay because there's a lot to talk about here. This is, let me go back to camp. Fuck the tutorial for a second. In camp, we have a number of different options. We can rest. If you rest, it takes 1 day, so you lose 1 day of supplies, but your morale improves, and if you have injuries, those come closer to resting. The injuries that I've seen so far, someone gets knocked out in combat, they have a 1 to 3 day injury, so 1 to 3 days of supplies to get them back to full health. Otherwise, they're massively crippled for the next battle. You can go to the training tent. That'll allow us to fight a battle using our heroes and maybe learn some tactics with them, basically, without any risk necessarily being associated with it. And then the heroes tent is basically like a character menu. So if we click on Gunalf, for example, we can see that he has a level up. This interface at the bottom indicates 4 kills that he's gotten, 2 kills that he needs to get a promotion. So we can click on this and learn about his abilities if we choose, but that's okay. Let's close this out. So, let's promote him. I can look and see if anybody else has a promotion. Nobody else does. That's fine. Does anyone else even have any kills? Nope, that's all right too. We can also read their stories, by the way, if we click the like scribe button up here. But anyway, we're gonna do a promotion. It'll cost us 5 renown. That's okay. Now we become rank 2. Our stats become better, and we can choose what to do with our points. We can upgrade our ability. We can upgrade our armor. We could upgrade our willpower, not upgrade our willpower. This is just like replenish our willpower. This is why I was saying it's a good idea to keep your willpower as high as possible. But I think what I'm going to do is we'll take 1 point in armor, because that obviously makes us take less damage, and we'll take 1 point in willpower as well, and we'll confirm that. We can also get like an armor break. Is that what I believe this is? Or maybe that's this. I don't really remember, to be honest with you. I guess I can click on this. Yeah, okay. What is this? Break is the amount of direct damage you can naturally do to an enemy's armor. So this would improve our damage against armor. Oh, exertion. This is it. Exertion is the amount of willpower you can use on any given action. So we can. He only has 0 right now. Is that correct? Let me go back here. Yeah, so that's why he can't use any willpower. In fact, it would have been wise maybe to take 1 away from willpower and put 1 in exertion so I could actually use that willpower for things other than just our Tempest move, as you can see here. And by the way, as we rank up, Tempest will allow us to hit more enemies, but it also allows us to hit our own allies as well, so you got to be careful with it. Anyway, that is the level up screen. Let's get out of here, and we'll go back to, I mean, we can rest. I think we can also leave. And I don't think there's any reason to stay here, so we might as well leave. I swear to you we will have another battle soon. But this is cool because you get to show off the Oregon Trail style stuff that's going along. I'll let the voice acting talk.
Where frozen wind sweeps in from the bay. They tend livestock, but most are just men driven from strand with nowhere else to go. Why else would anyone stay? We won't stop long.
Doesn't seem like there's a ton of voice acting in the game, but it's reasonably well done. When we come across like an actual scripted cutscene, there's voice acting, which is cool. Again, because there's a lot of like, I don't know, reverence or nostalgia that I have for, you know, old animated movies that used to look like this. And I don't mean old as a slight either. By Harderborg, there's a lot of Varl for some missing cattle. Basically, this guy is telling us a bunch of cows went missing. What up with that, right? Why are you guys here for all the cattle? But instead, our prince has gone missing, who is the person we're escorting. I'm filling in the story for you in as expedited a fashion as possible. And now, we come across these, like, Bastion-style enemies. These are the Dredge, or the Dreg, I think they call them in the game, but it's spelled like Dredge. And this is going to teach us about how to fight armored foes, basically. These are our big bads. These are the people that, you know, or the units where people are like, oh shit, I'm, like, actually really afraid. So, this is our prince. He sucks, and he's going to get killed. This is just teaching us that you can make a waypoint. If you have a spear, you can actually attack diagonally up to 2 tiles away. So the interesting thing to note is that the higher an armor value is for an enemy, the more likely an attack is to deflect. So this 50% indicates that there's a 50% chance my attack will just deflect and the shot, my spear thrust will just do no damage. The lower their armor value is, the lower this deflection chance goes. So, you know, we get deflected, and then we're about to be killed here, or fainted. That'll give us an injury. And then we are going to come through here with our Varl and hopefully do some better stuff. So we have Moger, Hakan, and Gunolf. But anyway, first move is with Hakan, who is a very high damage dealer. So we're going to start by just moving, and we'll move him over to here. And then we'll have a chance to attack. So what is Sundering Impact? 100% to hit, +1 break to target, +1 break to heavy impact. What I will say is that I think the tooltips for the actual skills are not necessarily very good at communicating what they do. Like Sundering Impact 100% to hit, +1 strength, +1 break to target. I think that means we're guaranteed to do 1 damage to armor and 1 damage to health, and then maybe our strength value adds more damage on top of that. So let's try Sundering Impact then, and we'll see how this works out for us. Yeah, okay, so that, I think maybe that's basically what they were getting at with that. Maybe it's my fault. I don't necessarily think so, though. I think the communication there is a little bit unclear. So this is our shield banger, I think, and I can't do too much with him. This will take a willpower, so I don't necessarily want to do that. He's only got 4. Let's Bring the Pain. 1 break damage to target, +1 to return the favor. That means if they attack your armor, you do 1 damage to their armor. But if we did this, we'd actually do 2. But instead, we're just going to move ourselves like over here, and we'll get ourselves in position for the next round, because I can't attack anybody right here. So we'll end our turn. And they'll move. And this is where we really have to focus on taking out a unit's armor before anything else. So we're going to move and get into kind of like a sideways flanking position here. We could use Tempest, but it would be a waste. It might actually be bad. It might hurt ourselves. And we'll do 1 damage to this big Dreg's armor here. And this is really the big bad that we're going to have to deal with here. And notice that he did 6 damage, even though I have 8 armor. So, like, minus 6 to my strength, I should say. So, this guy is like a real pain in the ass. The other two are not so bad. He's 13, 14, they're 8, 10. So, we really want to get this guy's armor down as soon as possible. I am, for the purposes of this video, I am okay with using 2 willpower to do 4 damage to his armor instead of just the requisite 2. So, that's going to make him a lot easier to kill for us. But we still may end up with a position where this guy, Gunulf, ends up being injured. And again, this is what I was saying before. It's a pretty hard game, at least in my experience so far. Mind you, I am bad at this kind of stuff. That being said, I'm having a lot of fun with it regardless, but it is seriously like a real challenge as well. So that's Return the Favor, how he had 1 damage done to his armor as well. Since our strength value is low, I think that's why we're not doing very much damage ourselves. But now this is actually a very good time for me to use Tempest, and ended up doing 1 damage to each of those units, so I would have been better off just messing with his armor, I think. Now we can do 8 damage to him, though, or 2 damage to his armor. I think we'll do 8 damage to him directly. We're like the big axe man here. Please tell me this guy's not going to die just yet. He's got 1 strength remaining. And then we can, with 1 willpower, we can actually kill the big Dredge here. That's extremely important. So whenever an enemy falls in battle, 1 willpower star is added to your horn. Using the horn will give 1 willpower to the active ally. So this is a way to replenish our willpower a little bit. But we can also save up more willpower if we want to. And as you can see, good morale gives us higher willpower. Maybe that's why I had more willpower than my original capacity during that first battle. So let's walk over here on top of the injured body of our comrade. And we could use Sundering Impact, but again, I don't really know how this works that well. Why don't we try Sundering Impact on this guy? That'll cost us our last willpower, but it did do 7 damage. That's pretty nice. And we didn't return the favor there, which is kind of weird. But we should certainly be able to get a kill on this. Oh, I didn't get close enough. Can I attack anybody? I can't. Okay. End turn because I'm an idiot. But that's okay. We'll be in pillage mode soon, which will allow me to get some good stuff done. So we'll kill you just by completely ruining your strength. And then in pillage mode, we'll be able to kind of go to town on this guy. So why don't we move you over here and then attack. And we can do 3 damage or 2 damage to his armor. Let's do 2 damage to his armor first, because that'll make this guy able to do way more damage. He's doing 3. You know what? Let's do 2 more damage to his armor. This is probably a bad idea unless we start doing 10 damage, but hopefully we don't end up being injured here. Now we can do 7 damage, and I don't think there's any reason to use any more willpower to make that happen. We're only doing 1 damage, unfortunately, because I'm an idiot. And actually, there's a realistic chance that this guy could die, or get injured. So I think it's in my best interest, because we've already basically won the battle, to just kind of retreat him away and have him end his turn instead. And then, oh, we deflected it. Okay, that's really good news. So unfortunately, I think because this guy's movement stat is not very good, I actually will spend 1 willpower to get into position, but we'll get the kill afterwards, which is fine. So we'll just kill you like so. Beautiful. And now he's earned a promotion, which I actually did not get in my off-camera play. That is probably going to do it for my Let's Look At of the Banner Saga. One caveat I want to add, and that's the end of a chapter. So as you can see, the average chapter, maybe 20 to 30 minutes. I don't know how long the Banner Saga actually is, and that's something that I wish I did know, because it's a $19 or it's a $20 or $25 game depending on when you buy it. From an audio-visual standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, no question, it warrants it. It's a great-looking game. In my limited experience so far, it's a great playing game. It tells an interesting story, even though I don't necessarily 100% resonate with the way it tells that story. As you can see, there's a cool, Rashomon kind of thing here where, you're transferring viewpoints to other people, and these are kind of we're going to learn more about ranged classes with these people. These people are from a different kingdom, and they've got their own little story thing going on. It's a pretty ambitious indie game to be coming out on Steam, and I think it does warrant that, $20 to $25 price point. I wish I didn't have to spend so much time kind of justifying. I'll play here as I talk. I wish I didn't have to spend as much time justifying that I think it's worth its price, but inevitably that's one of the things that people are most concerned about when it comes to games, especially games that are a little bit more expensive than other games, not necessarily in the same niche, but other games that kind of occupy the same space, if that makes sense. This is, I probably should not have gotten like right out in front of this guy because I'm going to take a lot of damage, but that's okay. What I will say is that, you know, there's nothing that I've seen so far. The story's like really just getting going an hour and a half in. So I don't think that this is going to be like a 1 hour game. Like, I don't think this is going to be a Loom situation where someone, like, you're going to pick it up and then you're going to be like, wait a minute, this is actually only like 2 hours long. That'd be real shitty. And if you're worried about that, I would encourage you to do your own research. As of right now, you know, the game's just coming out, so I can't really know how long it is, unfortunately. That being said, if it does provide an adequate length, and it looks like it would, then I think this is a really, really good game. I think this is a game that you can feel very good about picking up, and if you're the kind of person that's into these strategy games, especially if you're the kind of person that's into these strategy games with a little bit more of a fantasy arc to it, there's not a lot I can say that should discourage you from picking this up, and I mean that 100% honestly. It's an incredibly ambitious game, and I think it does a lot of things. Good thing we did his armor breaking move there. It does a lot of things really, really right, and that's not me saying like, oh, you know, it's got problem X and problem Y, but at least it's, you know, at least their heart's in the right place. That's not me saying that. I think this is a complete polished product. The only caveat emptor, buyer beware thing I have is that I don't know definitively how long the Banner Saga is. What I will say, by the way, there is no multiplayer in the Banner Saga as it comes out on Steam, but there was a standalone multiplayer version of the game released kind of as like a proof of concept on Steam, free to play, in February 2013. So if you want to play this multiplayer against other people, you can go do that. As is, I'm really kind of into the single player, and I'm looking forward to playing this more in my off time. I think I've said my piece with respect to the Banner Saga. Maybe I can quit back to the... I don't want to quit game necessarily in case that throws us back to the desktop. Let's test it. Let's test it. Quit game. I think it'll just throw us back to the main menu. By the way, the Oregon Trail stuff becomes more... Again, you get to exercise more agency over it. It's not as hand-holding once you get past that Chapter 1. So yes, let's quit back to the main menu. Don't exit the game. Good, okay. This is the Banner Saga. What are my points on the game? Beautiful. One of the best looking games I think that I've seen, at least in the past few years, especially coming from a small team. Super neat. And really unique visual style as well. Not a whole lot of games come out with a style that apes this in many ways. Neat gameplay. I'm a sucker for turn-based strategy games like this. Huge fan of XCOM. Big fan of what I've played in the Banner Saga so far. There's still a lot for me to learn, but I think I've got the basics down, and it's engaging. I didn't mind playing another 40 minutes of it here on camera of stuff that I've already played before, and that's not always the case. Story, mixed bag so far. Very, very heavy on the, you know, dialogue and just things happening. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is, you know, objectively, it's story-driven. Much more so than something like, again, XCOM Enemy Unknown, where you got like one story cutscene like every 3 hours or something like that. This is much more, you know, of a 50-50 balance between story and gameplay. Other caveats, don't know how long it is. $20 to $25, which is maybe cost prohibitive for a lot of people. But if you can get over those caveats, especially if you do your own research with respect to the length, this is a game that I'm very excited about. I think easily, I mean, we're only 2 weeks into January, but it's easily one of the best games of 2014 so far. I could see it, if it holds up over, you know, one entire playthrough, being on my list of maybe one of my favorite games of 2014. And of course, it's very early to say that, very, very early to say that. And you know, when December of 2014 comes around, maybe I'll have completely forgotten about it. But as of right now, very excited about it. Looking forward to telling more people about it. And I think that the Banner Saga is a very well done effort here. So there will be a link in the video description below to pick this up on Steam. If you are interested, don't hesitate to pick it up. $5 off for its opening week sale. That's a tangible amount of money. And of course, feel free to like the video if you enjoyed the video. It does help out a great deal. And subscribe if you want to see more first impressions in the future. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.